Blunsville, Tennessee is a census-designated place in Sullivan County, just south of the Virginia border. With just over 3,000 residents, it's tiny, and it has that small-town feel where things just move a little bit slower. So when one of their smallest residents went missing, the tight-knit community of Blunsville were deeply troubled. Evelyn Mae Boswell was born on September 21, 2018 in Blunsville to parents Ethan Perry and Megan Boswell. She was a beautiful baby girl with tufts of blonde hair and big blue eyes. Megan, who was known as Maggie to her friends and family, was just 17 years old when Evelyn was born. Like many young couples learning to be parents, Maggie and Ethan eventually went their separate ways, with Maggie obtaining sole custody of their daughter.
On February 18, 2020, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office received a referral from the Department of Children's Services stating that Evelyn, now 15 months old, had not been seen since before Christmas of 2019. According to People magazine, the complaint was filed by 68-year-old David Jones, who is Evelyn's great-grandfather and Maggie's grandfather. However, according to many other sources, the complaint was actually filed by Tommy Boswell Sr., Maggie's father, who subsequently told WJHL News 11,
"What do you guys think happened? Can you comment on that?"
I don't know what happened, but I'm the one called DCS and got this started.
And why did you call DCS?
Because my granddaughter, she never did come back, and I just want to know what happened to her.
When was the last time you had seen her?
Thanksgiving, up to his house. We all had Thanksgiving dinner.
So you hadn't seen her since Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving.
I know some reports say that it was like early December, so yours was a lot longer than that.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving.
Had you been in communication with them at all? Like, I know you hadn't seen her, but what about
talking?
talking?
No, I hadn't talked to her nothing. I stayed busy, and I talked to my ex-wife, and I told her, I said, if Evelyn don't come home, I'm going to do something about it. And she said, you better not do that. You're going to regret this.
Detective Tracy Haraz and CPS caseworker James Lewis took point on the investigation and responded to Maggie's home to inquire about the whereabouts of her daughter. According to Maggie, Evelyn was in the custody of her father, 20-year-old Ethan Perry. She further explained that she was scheduled to meet Ethan the following day to exchange custody of Evelyn. Allegedly, the pair were to meet up in the parking lot of Ingalls Markets in Colonial Heights at around 4 p.m.
There was just one problem with Maggie's story. Ethan was on active duty for the U.S. Army and was stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana. Maggie should have probably kept better tabs on her ex if she was going to cook up some ridiculous story. Now, as time went on, Maggie's version of events kept changing depending on who she was speaking with.
In an interview with WCYB News 5, Maggie claimed that Evelyn was with a babysitter, but would not reveal who that alleged babysitter was. She then claimed she was scared to report her daughter missing, stating, quote, "The reason I didn't report it or anything was I knew the person who had her, and I didn't want them to run away with her. And as soon as they thought anything was going on, they just kind of vanished. So I'm just kind of worried, about where they are at, what they're doing with her." During that interview, the now 18-year-old mother told reporters that she was again pregnant and could not take a polygraph test due to her condition. However, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office doesn't use polygraphs, and they did not contact the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to administer one.
Can you tell me, you said you can't take a polygraph?
No, I came here to take a polygraph, and due to policy, they cannot give me one.
Okay. Due to their policy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can't tell me why? Based on their policy, or you just don't feel
Based on their policy.
Okay. I just want to give you the opportunity to address anything that you feel that the public should or shouldn't know, or I know everybody's in your business.
I am pregnant, that's why they won't give me a polygraph. Due to policy, if you're pregnant, they cannot give you one.
Okay. That makes sense. So you said in your interview yesterday with another station that you do kind of have an idea of where Evelyn is?
They're checking. They're checking now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you report that before?
Mm-hmm. They're doing their best.
Okay.
At 7 p.m. on February 19th, an Amber Alert was officially issued with regards to Evelyn Boswell. She was described as being 2 feet tall, weighing 28 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes. She was last seen on December 26, 2019, wearing a tracksuit, a hair bow, and shoes that were all pink in color. Although the TBI claimed that Evelyn was last seen the day after Christmas, Sheriff Jeff Cassidy of the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office stated that he believed she was last seen on December 10th or 11th by a babysitter. This was because Sheriff Cassidy had spoken to said babysitter. He said, "The 10th or 11th is what I've been going on, simply because it was verified by somebody who's not lied to us."
On February 21st, the TBI announced that they were looking for a gray 2007 BMW because, based on information provided to them by Maggie, They believe people traveling in the car may have information regarding Evelyn's whereabouts. More on that in just a moment. That same day, Sheriff Cassidy held a press conference to announce that both Maggie and Ethan were actively participating in the investigation. The sheriff also offered $1,000 of his own money as a reward for information leading to Evelyn's safe return, and urged others to donate as well. Within days, the TBI received roughly 200 tips, and the reward increased to almost $60,000. Now, like many bad parents that we cover on this channel, Maggie had a number of social media profiles under different aliases. In one profile where she calls herself Maggie Wood, she made a plea on February 24, 2020 for her daughter's safe return. It read, "Here are some more pictures of Evelyn. Please share and help me find my baby. She is the sweetest baby you will ever meet and will smile and want to hug you when you see her. Around 2 feet tall, 28 pounds, dirty blonde hair and blue eyes." The same day, Maggie made another post. "Tonight at 11, there will be an important interview concerning Evelyn on WJHL. Please share this and get the word out."
In this interview, Maggie shared a completely different series of events than what she had told Detective Haraz, as well as WCYB News 5. During the second interview, Maggie claimed she knew where her daughter was. She was with her drug-addicted mother, Angela Boswell, and insisted she had shared this information with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Well, actually, I want to talk about that. I've told TBI where to find her in Mendota. My mom took her to a campground and a silver camper, and if they don't go tonight, I'm going to go find her myself. Because I've told them, and they're not really taking it seriously, and if they don't go tonight, I will go myself and go get her.
But in the same breath, her story shifted again. As if she didn't realize she was going on record, she said,
"They're not taking me seriously, TBI isn't, because I've not fully told them. I've been hey, my mom camped out at Mendota, you want to go check them out, but I've never been specifically, hey, she's in your silver camper," because my mom did threaten me, if I told anybody. I'm not going to get into that, but she did.
For context, Mendota is another census-designated place just 33 minutes north of Bluntsville in the state of Virginia. However, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office began growing impatient with Maggie and her frivolous claims. According to Captain Andy Seabolt, the claim that Megan made stating that Evelyn was in a camper in Mendota was investigated completely. The Washington County, Virginia Sheriff's Office, along with the United States Marshals, checked every campground in Mendota and nothing was found. Megan's story has changed multiple times throughout this investigation.
However, that same day, the occupants of the gray 2007 BMW were found and arrested 2 hours away in Wilkes County, North Carolina. They were none other than Maggie's mother, 42-year-old Angela Boswell, and her boyfriend, 33-year-old William McLeod. The pair were charged with possession of stolen property, as the car was in fact stolen. Apparently, the car was going to be sold to the Boswell family, but no agreement was reached and no money was exchanged. In addition, the pair were also sought for questioning with regard to the whereabouts of Evelyn. At their initial appearance in a North Carolina courtroom, both waived extradition. Angela told the judge that she was anxious to return home to face questioning. She was later transported to the Sullivan County Jail, where she was held without bond, while her boyfriend remained in the Wilkes County Jail. Shortly after their arrest, their bail bondsman, Derek Bishop, had this to share with WJHL News 11.
Bondsman Derek Bishop says William McLeod claims to have only seen the missing Evelyn Boswell twice. Once when he and Evelyn's grandmother, Angela Boswell, began dating, and at some point last November.
And I just asked him if he knew where the baby was, and he made a comment that the baby's mother knows where the baby is. And this seems like that she's trying to kind of pawn it off on Angela.
Angela was arrested last Friday in North Carolina on charges of probation violation and theft of property.
I guess Angela and her daughter had a little bit of a rocky relationship, and they were trying to mend that. And I guess the way they were trying to mend that was through the relationship with Evelyn as well.
Bishop assisted Angela Boswell with multiple bonds since 2018 and McLeod with one last year. Now he's helping McLeod after he was arrested in a stolen BMW, wanted in the search for Evelyn Boswell.
They didn't know that the car was stolen or the car hasn't been paid for, but that's what he said. He said that the arrangement was that they were paying for the car, and then all of a sudden the car got reported stolen on the 20th.
McLeod told Bishop that he visited his grandmother in Wilkes County, North Carolina a week ago, near the pond searched Wednesday by authorities. Officials called that search inconclusive. Bishop says McLeod told him last night that he's offered to take a polygraph test.
And I guess he did give his DNA to the authorities as well.
Like everyone, Bishop says when it comes to the missing Evelyn Boswell, he hopes for the best.
Just wish everything's safe for the baby.
And you will continue to help them?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Imagine having your own bail bondsman like some people have accountants or hairdressers.
Soon, Angela and William weren't the only ones who were going to be facing the law. On February 25th, Megan Maggie Boswell was arrested and charged with filing false reports. She was placed in the custody of the Sullivan County Jail on $25,000 bond. Her first court appearance was set for March 2nd at 1:30 p.m. in the Bristol General Sessions Court. According to her arrest warrant signed by Detective Tracy Haraz, through investigation, it was determined that Megan Boswell made the false statements to law enforcement in response to a legitimate inquiry by law enforcement concerning a material fact about an offense or with the intent to hinder law enforcement from finding Evelyn Boswell. In a press conference, Sheriff Cassidy told reporters, "Every time we talk to her, her story changes. I'm serious when I say that. Every single time." Her conflicting statements had already made the investigation into Evelyn's disappearance more difficult. According to the sheriff, quote, "We were already behind the 8 ball, 67 to 68 days before she was reported missing," end quote.
At this point, most of you are aware that we've received a number of conflicting, inaccurate statements from the mother, Megan Boswell, Evelyn's mother. During the investigation, we determined that some of the statements Megan Boswell provided to us were false. Many of the false statements that Megan made delayed our investigations and also impeded our investigations on trying to find Evelyn. As a result, she has been charged with false reporting. Because the investigation remains active and ongoing, we can only release specific answers to this investigation. Of course, everybody knows that a lot of the stuff that we received, work with it being conflicting and inaccurate, and a lot of the information you all are receiving are from the mother, Megan. A lot of the stuff that you're seeing out on social media and a lot of stuff that has been relayed to you hadn't come from our office. So we want to release the most accurate information to you all, and we want to be promptly in doing so. So a lot of the stuff that you all are getting is from the mother, and you know, you take with it what you want, but she has been inaccurate, conflicting statements all through this investigation.
Following a tip that Evelyn could have been dumped in a pond in Wilkes County, North Carolina, a rescue team searched using a remote-operated vehicle on February 26th. However, no body or other evidence related to Evelyn's case was found. The tip, which proved to be false, was one of more than 570 tips that had now been called in within a week of the little girl being reported missing. According to TBI spokeswoman Leslie Earhart, all tips have to be checked out just to make sure. While in custody, Maggie decided to finally come clean with TBI agents. Evelyn wasn't missing. She was dead. The disgraced mother claimed that her daughter's death was purely accidental. She said she and her boyfriend at the time were sleeping in bed with Evelyn when they woke to find her unresponsive. Maggie claimed that she had to have been smothered after co-sleeping with 2 adults. There's just a few problems with this story. Evelyn was 15 months old, so it was unlikely that she would have suffocated inside of her mother's bed. The other disturbing part? Maggie claimed to have thrown her daughter's body into the trash, but refused to tell the agents where to find it. To me, this doesn't sound like something you do in the case of an accidental death. However, on March 6, 2020, after weeks of wild goose chases around Appalachia, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department and the TBI finally had a solid lead. According to TBI agent Brian Fraley, the tip came in from none other than Evelyn's grandfather, Tommy Boswell Sr., the same man who initially called in her disappearance. According to Agent Fraley, quote, "We received a call from Evelyn's grandfather talking about a storage shed on his property. He believed it may have been valuable for us to look in it and search," end quote.
Inside of the storage shed located on Tommy's property on Muddy Creek Road, Agent Fraley found a child's playhouse. Allegedly, the grandfather had originally built this playhouse for Maggie years ago when she was a little girl. According to Agent Fraley, it looked like it hadn't been played in for years. When he took a peek inside, he came across a trash can that looked out of place. In fact, it appeared to have been placed inside recently. But when Agent Fraley removed the trash can and lifted a trash bag covering the top portion, he knew then he'd solved the riddle of what happened to Evelyn. According to him, he observed a leg with a foot attached on top of the trash. The 15-month-old's body had been wrapped in aluminum foil and stuffed inside of a black trash bag. She was wearing an unzipped purple fleece onesie with penguins on it and had been tightly swaddled in a gray and white blanket. It was unclear how long Evelyn's body had been there, but it was clear the little girl was in an active state of decomposition that had been taking place in a confined space. On August 20th, 2020, Megan Maggie Boswell was charged with homicide in the death of her daughter, Evelyn May Boswell. The homicide charge was part of a 19-count indictment returned by a Sullivan County grand jury. This included 2 counts of felony homicide, 1 count of aggravated CA, 1 count of aggravated child neglect, 1 count of tampering with evidence, 12 counts of false reporting, 1 count of abuse of a corpse, and 1 count of failure to report a death under suspicious or unusual circumstances. Her bond was set at $1 million, and her next court appearance was scheduled for August 28th. She, of course, pled not guilty.
This afternoon, the grand jury of Sullivan County returned a true bill, a presentment, charging Megan Boswell with a total of 19 counts. There were 2 counts of felony murder, 1 in perpetration of aggravated child abuse and 1 in perpetration of aggravated child neglect. 1 count of aggravated child abuse, 1 count of aggravated child neglect, 1 count of tampering with evidence, 1 count of 12 counts of false report, 1 count of abuse of corpse, 1 count of failure to report a death under suspicious or unusual or unnatural circumstances. The next hearing date is August the 28th in criminal court for Sullivan County, and the bond on this case currently is $1 million.
Baby Evelyn's body was found on March 6th. Since that time, my detectives, TBI agents, and the DA's office have worked tirelessly conducting interviews, combing through evidence, and establishing a timeline in order to determine the circumstances leading to baby Evelyn's death. As a result of false information given by the defendant, along with misinformation circulated in the community, there's been a lot of confusion in the case. I want to be clear when I say that after an extensive and thorough investigation, other individuals were eliminated as suspects, and Megan Boswell became the sole suspect in this case. My office has received dozens of calls and messages over the last several months from concerned residents wanting to make sure that we had not forgotten about baby Evelyn. I assure you we haven't and we won't. I want to express my sincere appreciation to those residents who have shown their support throughout this process. We've received foods, cards, prayers, many encouragement, and we appreciate that more than you know. I know many of you still have a lot of questions in this case. Please know that we can't speak to the evidence gathered during this investigation because this case now has to be prosecuted.
As we struggle to attempt to understand why or even how someone can harm an innocent child, we will never know because, thank God, most of us are not wired that way. But we can certainly try our best to make sure that those responsible for these incomprehensible acts are held accountable.
At a court hearing on September 23, 2022, forensic pathologist Dr. Darinka Malusnik-Polchin testified that Evelyn hadn't died as the result of co-sleeping. She was too old for that. Evelyn had suffocated to death, but the reason was just more sinister. Evelyn had been placed upside down inside of the trash bag, which was then stuffed into the trash can with such force that her head was pressed backwards against her back. Yes, that sounds exactly like you think it does. According to the pathologist, quote, "She was sort of compressed in the can. Her head was completely tilted backward, severely overextended. She was in a distorted fetal position. Her facial features were pretty much flattened," end quote. It should be noted that Dr. Malusnik-Polchin serves as the Knox County's chief medical examiner, heads a regional forensic center located in Knoxville, and is an expert in the detection of fatal CA. This lady knows what she's looking for, and in her expert opinion, Evelyn's death was intentional. It was a homicide. This little girl had been smothered. According to the pathologist, the blanket was wrapped so tightly around Evelyn's body that it left imprints on her skin. Aluminum foil was also obstructing her airway. She added that decomposition in the infestation of maggots prevented investigators from determining if blunt force trauma was a factor in Evelyn's death, but that her skeleton did not show damage.
Although Dr. Malusnik-Polchin's testimony was made public, details surrounding Evelyn's autopsy and related photographs were ordered sealed by Judge William Goodwin. According to Maggie's then attorney Brad Sproles, the photos were so graphic that jurors would convict his client solely as an emotional reaction. But in the end, Judge Goodwin ruled that some of these photographs were necessary for the state to prove its felony homicide case. But he barred jurors from seeing two he deemed particularly graphic and prejudicial. So where does this case stand now? As with many cases that we've covered over the past 4 years, the pandemic caused some delays in due process in courthouses around the country. Further delays were attributed to intense pretrial publicity and motions for a change of venue. In September of 2022, Brad Sproles was replaced by Gene Scott as Maggie's court-appointed attorney. The change of counsel caused further delay in the trial, moving it to February 3rd, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. On August 20th, 2023, Maggie petitioned Judge Goodwin to wear civilian clothing at preliminary hearings. This request was denied, citing the fact that a jury had not yet been selected for her trial and that Maggie shouldn't be treated any differently than any inmate in the county jail system. As this case is all over the place, we'll keep an eye out for updates as they become available. Evelyn Mae Boswell was laid to rest at the Glenwood Cemetery and Chapel Mausoleum in Bristol, Tennessee. She was buried beneath a heart-shaped red granite gravestone decorated with etchings of praying angels. In the center of the stone is a picture of Evelyn in happier times, smiling as she sat barefoot in a chair made especially for her, surrounded by autumn leaves.